Hello and welcome back to another CC Design Contest playthrough, and in this one we're going to play Lower Fishing Lake GC by Matty from Canada. Matty's a good friend, so we can try and give him as much as we possibly can to take away and work on. First of all, the published photo is awful, but other than that we're going to play on pin 3, white. He says it could potentially go up to 186s, but we're not going to touch that. So Matty's a previous winner of the CC contest with Yellowgrass Prairie, which was actually the holder, I think. So obviously knows what he's doing, or at least with this when it comes to this sort of contest, and kind of getting the right sort of difficulty, which is really, as you'll have seen from these playthroughs, that's a really big feature of this contest rather than just building the golf course you want to build. So zooming up and around, and we've got kind of a nice boreal sort of environment. It's quite flat, which is different and challenging. And then we've got this like beach area that's really nicely done. Yeah, looks lovely. Playgrounds and things like that. Use of the new caravans and what have you. It's a really authentic kind of environment. And the openness is a real strength, I would say. You're looking at very, very wide fairways, kind of the bunkering that's pretty stylistic but very ragged. I guess use of kind of remove heavy rough works really nicely over here. Some rocks and stuff. I'm going to kind of meander around as well. So we're assuming that we'll visit the lake a number of times, kind of at different points. We've got a road and splined fences, lovely stuff. And Matty's a big fan of width and angles and things like that, and allowing you to bounce the ball into the greens. Oh, look, it's the Vermilion Range Clubhouse. We appreciate this. The clubhouse is quite nice. As said on Matt's playthrough, it's like there's not much more you can do with this than like the wooden sort of look at it, which is just a limit of the amount of options we've got. Waterside planting looks great, and I believe, oh look, we saw an eagle overhead. I believe we've got a little Easter egg over here. Yep. And factually incorrect. I really like this little area. The planting here is excellent. It's done really nicely. I'm very much looking forward to this course. I'm playing through it very flat near the waterline, which is going to be interesting and slightly different. Let's find our way back to the first tee, wherever we may be. Oh yeah, we're out playing on the lake, which is a good way to introduce us to a very kind of first tier Macrahanish. And onto the tee we go. Okay, so first tee, and you can see we've got a really wide open fairway. As you'd have seen me critique on a number of other courses, what he hasn't done is he hasn't taken away the front of the fairway the whole way. If you were to play out here, you've got a lot of space and short grass to land it on. So even on a short hole, there's always going to be a way to run it on for this one. I guess you could potentially hit driver this way and play into that front bunker. But I don't see why you would. As for this one, I guess we're playing as far this way as we can to open up more of the angle. And even if we haven't, like, there's so much width that if you are, I don't know, finding heavy rough back here and you can't get to the green, like, that's absolutely fine. As is, I kind of want to think about whether I want a full wedge in or a pitch. I kind of want to just bunt something down this way. I don't think I really need to take on the inside corner of that dogleg too much. It's a really nice environment, I have to say. I love kind of this style of planting. It's kind of overgrown. It's detailed enough that when you're looking at it, the grass works really good. How you've only got the bulrushes by the water and then different grasses extending in little patches of the purple, which is fast becoming a Matty trademark. The bunkers have little bits of grass in them, which again kind of lends to that feel of it all blending in and being part of the one environment. And as for the tee shot, if I was playing to this pin, I'd probably want to attack it a little bit differently compared to this pin. But I'm not out of position. There's a backstop. So when you've seen me do playthroughs where I've said everything's too protected, or here, yeah, if you're landing it short, you've got to be more precise. But there is a backstop that you can use to bring it back. There's always a helping slope, I would say. Not everything is running us away from the pin. Oh, and there's our very fast pitch into the bunker, which is why we should have laid further back. Just hit that. Hopefully out. Par on this hole, I would say, should be. I may not make it look like this, but it should be relatively straightforward. Quite fast greens, but they're really gently contoured. So again, that's balancing the difficulty nicely, and you get a good view over the lake to whatever's coming next. One thing I like about the plot immediately is that the lake is just that big feature. He's not artificially bringing it in and putting other water hazards elsewhere. Okay, second hole, short par 5. I guess we want to be attacking it more from this side. The green's raised. I would probably like to see the front a little flatter to allow a bit more of a ground game approach, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it is a short par 5, so potentially you're hitting an iron in. I think for this one, I really want to be going down this side. That's 2 holes in a row where we're playing to the outside of the dog leg, which is different. So there's loads of width for you to find the fairway. It's not really putting a premium on that. Yeah, I think I'd have liked a little bit of flattening at the front of the green. Otherwise, the bunkering around the green looks excellent. Frames really nicely from here. You can tell he's worked hard on sightlines and making sure that there's nothing we're not seeing that we should see. I doubt anyone's using this layup area, but it's provided. So, yeah, I don't think there's a pin that needs you to use that. The green's got subtle contours. There's nothing major on it. Really big tiers that are forgiving. It's an easy course, but one where you still need to, like, if you want to find the different types of shots, you can look for them. I think, like here, for example, I felt my 3 iron's going to come a bit short, so we're trying to hit a kind of bouncing 5 wood because I don't want to go too far long and have to putt down that. I'd rather be here. But I could have just hammered 5 wood and I'd been not out of the hole. The commitment to all the planting over here is also really good as well. Just 2 really solid openers. I would say that if we're being hypercritical, is that hole really speaking to me as something that's just like, yep, that's an absolute winner? Probably not so much, but it's a really solid hole. There's not much to critique on that one. Okay, long par 4. This one's interesting because we've got a high back tier on a long par 4, although it's very flat once you get up there. So whilst I'd normally advise against popping a tier on a long par 4, with this one, it's going to act as slowing the ball up a little bit. And then when you do make it, it's very flat. So even if you're at the bottom, yeah, it's a 2-putt, but we know that drivers also go very far in this game. Bunkering down the right looks really pretty. I feel like the cart path could be a little bit more flattened out here. Looks just a little bit rumpled, and I know that's really tricky, but we are nitpicking. You get a better angle the more of those bunkers you cut out. Cut off the corner, a little bit of reverse camber to just take that okay shot and make it marginally worse, but by no means out of the hole. And although it's a long par 4 in different winds, with this one it's only a 9 iron, but not too much. Bunkering again really looks good. I can't say I'm totally in love with these 2 bunkers just in front on the right, shape-wise, but I kind of missed that with the mouse. Nice. Pushed it. But yeah, very flat when you're on that tier. Like the length on that hole is the difficult part of it. Everything else is relatively straightforward. Oh, so far so good. Hole 3, long par 3, downhill. I love that little deceptive bunker in front of the green. You can kind of, it's a bit of a visual illusion because it looks so close up to the edge of the green because of the height here. But then you see this one and you see how far away that is. So that's really going to kind of confuse on the tee, which I like that. There's so much fairway to use short of the hole, and clearly wanting us to bounce the ball on, which makes sense because it's a downhill par 3. It's working with the land. 6-iron bump and run, might even try 7-iron because the wind's going to carry it a bit further. And you can see the slopes are all helping. There's this mound that's taking us towards, here's taking us towards. Even if we had a back right pin, gentle camber here is pushing it towards there, as is that back slope. So it might not look like there's a ton of contour lots going on. It's actually just really subtle and cleverly done. Okay, something, I think that might be it. Maybe too far. Yeah. Lots of ability to bounce it down and get kind of close that way, rather than having to necessarily go pin hunting, which we appreciate. It makes you think a little bit differently. And nice birdie. Course is definitely on the easiest side. I guess if I had a critique so far, it's do I really need to challenge any of the hazards? I do get an advantage for doing so. I think with the width, it's do I need to do it at all? Well, here we have, and the 101% fast means that we're in this bunker. Sculpting wise, I think we can probably drop this just a little bit more. You can see how it's dipping here and then up a touch, and that might just be the brushes not fully overlapping. As it is, it's a 3-shot par 5 to a very tucked pin. So I'm not totally worried about being in the sand. I think as long as I'm on the left-hand side here, so here the angle matters a bit more. I want that look in at this pin rather than that look. Yeah, 6-iron's probably it. And as long as I'm down this left-hand side, and again the fairway pushes me that way to help a little bit, then we get that gap wedge looking directly down through the pin. And we're brought over here, really good view. There's lots to like here. I wonder whether we could have maybe brought the environment in a touch towards some of these bunkers. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think, maybe it doesn't fit. More a what if rather than an it needs it. I'm also really liking the generous cut of light rough. So he's not just gone with the standard width, there's a lot of it, which again makes sense in providing that forgiveness. And when this does inevitably go on CC, like, people playing it are going to have, it will be a birdie fest, and that's great, and it will be enjoyable for everyone. You can see this being really enjoyable on CCA, trying to shoot low, all the way down to the bottom tiers where flights where they're finding things tricky. Now rocks become a bit of a feature later on, so it's nice to bring one in the fairway where it doesn't really matter. It's a good way to introduce a key feature. Really wide hole and corridor, but narrows down pretty significantly as we take on trying to get closer to the green. And you get a better angle at this green the further along you go with water on the outside of the dogleg. It's a really awkward type of hole to try to design. I think you've done it about as well as you can do. It's really, really tough to have water on the outside of a dogleg. One thing I also really like is the trees on the outside. That's it. Yeah, we're going to find light rough, please. Just about. Oh, heavy rough. But even then, you can see why the generous cut of light rough is a good idea. And I'm in the heavy rough, but you've given me land short to run it in on, even to this pin. I can play for the middle of the green comfortably. I'm never going to be out of this hole, which is something that you really appreciate and adds to the kind of calm, fun nature of this round. And as you can see, we're going to need that little bit of land. Imagine if these bunkers were tucked right up against the green, just a bit more penal. I wonder whether you could have spiced this green up just a little. This one maybe feels a touch flat. I think there's a hint of a top tier or portion here and rolling down. So kind of you've got the possibility of playing a pitch shot that runs away from you to this pin. I will need to test that. because it is kind of running away. I think it's probably good. This is a more I wonder whether than a you should. Might not get. Oh no, it's getting there. Significantly further than I thought. Been a while since I played on greens this fast, but the green speeds work really well. Yeah, they're quick, but there's not much slope to the greens, so it's quite nice. Okay, so we introduced trees on the corner. We've now got a few more of them. I kind of feel like you could have lost one set of these trees, whether it be these ones or I think I'd have probably lost this one. I know you love your in fairway trees, but I don't see what that's really helping strategically. They're 90% air anyway. Play a little fade, just check down on driver. It's a fun shot, but I think that shot would have been equally fun without that tree there. And this is a nice green. Those two little funnel mounds are fun. They're not really affecting very much. I'd say maybe if you tucked a pin behind this one. Yes, if we bail out too far and too long, we're coming in over that. But never out of it. Yeah, another really solid hole. And one thing, okay, par three, love this little bunker dotted here and like these extra ones, just kind of space fillers, but they work really nicely. More of a tucked pin, but again, it's a diagonal. You can kind of the more you go at it, the more precise you have to be with your distance control, and you can always bail out to the middle of the green, and you're always finding the green. Little mound in the middle, but nothing that's too punitive. If we're on the other side here, we're facing a very difficult putt for birdie, but you're always going to par it. It's nothing too punitive. It's not crucially, it's not really that close to the pin. I think we can just hedge up at some play middle-ish. We've still got a decent look. So, when people think risk reward, in this case, it can just sometimes be diagonal surfacing. Like that's as much as you need. How close to those hazards do I want to play? I don't think I've played enough. Oh, I have just about. And you can see, I think when I have laid up, I've generally been rewarded for laying up in a sensible spot. Part of that is the greens never putting you out of it and allowing for you to play 15 feet away and have a makeable birdie putt. Okay, so this one I guess might be slightly pin dependent. This back pin, probably want to be coming in from this side. Honestly, my main critique of this course is I'm kind of, I guess, inevitably you compare this a little bit to Yellow Grass Prairie, and like it's not quite that. And that's really hard when you come up with a course that's that good. It's like living up to that and having holes that stick with you as much as those ones. And how many of these are really grabbing me? And it's difficult when it's CC and it's really easy. Particularly when you're going for super width and flat, then it's tough to inject that much interest. I think this hole it's lovely. It's like same with a couple of them. They're lovely. They're really functional. Are they necessarily making me race to play? Oh god, hit straight over it. Forgot the green speeds. Are they necessarily making me race to play it again? No. What would bring me back is the environment more than probably the golf at this point. Don't get me wrong, I'm really enjoying it. Oh, at least mid par. I am really enjoying it. That's just kind of and Matty gets it. That's the like you need a bit of an it factor for those contest winning courses. And I've certainly designed some in contests where I know I haven't captured lightning in a bottle like I have on, say, a Strathlorn. And that's just part of as you get better as a designer, it gets really hard to keep topping what you've done and you can't. So another long par 4, which I like. We need one. Really generous green, helping slopes, big green surface. All of these decisions are really, really smart. They all make sense. We like that. I do get a little bit of a reward if I'm playing close to those bunkers, but frankly, I don't think it's enough to warrant taking them on. I'm kind of happy going down this side, even if that means coming over this. I just don't want to be in a bunker on this long of a par 4. Again, if you're looking for that strategy, I know what I'm doing off the tee. If I play left, I get around this big slope. I'm now coming over it, and that's a more challenging second shot. I'm okay with that, because I know that I'm likely going to fast it, and I'm somewhere on the green anyway. But yeah, so far, so I think everything's... The one thing I would say about this is really carefully constructed. Everything makes sense. A little bit long. That's okay, because it is generally pretty flat. And I kind of don't really have that much to say, because that's the takeaway on the previous hole, the main point I think I've got for this one. Another long par 3, and working down slightly different direction to the other one. Similar concept, bouncing in and rolling, which we like. I think this one has a really good corridor. I love the bunker at the back. I think that frames really nicely. Grasses down the left look great. Space on the right, really open. I might have been tempted to plant 1 or 2 trees just here. Would have been my only thing. And same thing with your flattening of your car path, but I think that is tough. Sounds like a really simple thing, but flattening a cart path in this game is phenomenally difficult. And like adjusting the spline points so that it looks really flat. Oh, we just about made it. And yeah, again, like I'm rewarded for having the courage to hit a 7-iron and put it on, which I appreciate. And we get relatively stress-free birdie. Now, I think for me, there are 2 clear-cut front runners in this contest. I don't think it will surprise anyone that it's this and Central Otago. And it's those 2 probably going head-to-head. I guess the question is on this, playability-wise, how hard am I having to work for birdies on here versus on Otago? And that's like a big playability difference. Otago's quite narrow, really big land movement, smaller greens. This width, lots of angles. Both of them got great environments. And that little bit easier, I would say. That's, I guess, the real difference. There's still strategy on both. It's like how we're... And I will need a number of rounds on each to say which one between those 2 I'm going with. Because there is probably difference between them, but it's 1A and 1B. This one's got a lovely green site. I think just the amount of space you've afforded behind the green and like this little bit of underbrush planting makes it feel really natural. It would have been very easy just to have one tree line and be everything thick behind it, and you'd have lost something in terms of the environment and the feeling of place. I'm really glad you didn't. And even if it's a long approach, you can see how the green's feeding everything towards. Like, this is fun. It means that a rubbish approach like that gets just the tiniest bit of help back towards the pin. Okay. Okay. I'm expecting we're going to work our way back to the lake now because it's been a while since we've seen it. A little hint of a rock. I get this. It kind of maybe feels like it needs a little bit more around it. Maybe a couple of grasses would help. Super short par 4. This one's more about where we play, and this one kind of forces you to be strategic in a way that some of the others didn't. We can probably play up here and have a chip that way. Even if we go to heavy rough, I don't think that's bad. I'd have probably sculpted this bunker down just a little. It feels a little high at this point. Just looking at the sightline from here, I think That bunker's grabbing my eye a little bit, and the top of this bunker, a touch. I'm going to probably lower where the sand textures are so that you can see a bit more of the heavy rough on top of them. Really minor nitpicks. Framing in front of the tee is great. Framing everywhere is outstanding. Go on, get a straight bounce. Don't do this to me, Matty. Oh, he's even made it light rough so it kicks in. Okay, so we're in the position we really don't want to be. But that's alright, because there's loads of forgiveness on the green, so... And I think there's... Yeah. I don't know if there's too much forgiveness on this one. Like, it's still, I don't think, a shot that most CC players are going to opt for, because you will run out regardless of what you do. And I don't want to be a muppet and make a 4 on this hole. Muppet. Frustrating. But I played that poorly. I didn't quite catch my tee shot the way I wanted to. I took on a slightly riskier tee shot. And that's the punishment. It's par rather than a birdie. I think this is one of the best looking tee shots on the course. It's a shame that the creek is in shadow, but I guess there's not much you could do about that. You can probably thin out a few of the trees. I'd have probably let a little bit of light come through here somewhere. Just, you can usually manufacture it by clearing out trees that aren't in play. And this is taking us back to the waterline, which is where we're going to finish our round. So smart routing. I don't know if all of the bunkers... Well, I guess we've got that one on the left, but the very open tee shot, I don't know how much I had to place that one, really. And then we're working around... Yeah, these are the trees in the fairway that you've been teasing us with since the start of the round, which I guess give us a, do you go over, do you go under, do you go around? It's entertaining. I kind of wonder whether I can go over the middle one. But we're going to go around... No, I say we're going to go around to this side. It did run out quite a lot. Okay, and you leave this chip off a downhill lie. This green site's awesome. Really, really like it. The tree choice is unique, certainly. But hitting approach shots into this green is a ton of fun. I think it forces you to work the ball, which is something that I guess doesn't really happen as much as maybe it could. It's a nice little chip shot. Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier about the holes that I'll really remember and want to come back for. Playability wise, that second shot, absolutely all day. Want to come back and play that one. There just could have been a few more of those perhaps. And I put that down to the flat land and the width and the easy greens. It's like hard to grab attention with that. The environment is phenomenal. Like the rocks coming in here feel so, for lack of a better word, just classy. They're done really well, sensitively as well. The greens for flat greens still have interest. Little shelves. Yeah, lots of time for this. And just, I would go with, I think this is the prettiest par 3 in the contest. Yeah. There's a couple on Otago's back 9 that I think are close, but I think this one probably edges them out. Go on, bring it back. There we go. And the fast greens do mean that it's fun if you're above the hole as well. Like, possibly could have spiced up the greens just a touch. Okay, rock in play that can potentially rebound, like bound you into the water. This green's got a bit more movement to it, so big swale on the right. 564 yards. I'm just going to hammer a drive somewhere up here because I think I need to go left of that. I'm playing off the right tees, aren't I? Yeah, white. Okay, so it's easily reachable in this wind. Loads of room to bounce it on short. Remember on some other playthroughs I've shown you this sort of shot and like there'll be bunkers here, and you have to shoot the gap perfectly. Look at all the space that's afforded to me to run a ball into this green. Doesn't make it any less of an exacting shot. I've still got to work out roughly where I'm landing it. Just allowing that to happen rather than taking it away. Oh, I needed a bit more. But still, I mean, short is a safe miss. Lots of interesting little feeder slopes as well. So that's acting as a little feeder to go either left or right if you hit it in the right sort of area, which takes it towards a pin, which is appreciated. And thoughtful, really considered stuff. Just stop short. No, can't complain with 9 under. Drivable par 4, par 3 finish. Interesting. Okay, so we're tempting us, but we can go over here. I might if it were a back pin. Actually, you don't want to go long. I really like this hole. You've given us just enough space and just enough change of elevation to make us think about whether hitting driver is doable. I don't think it is. And then the bunkering looks nice and imposing. Sculpting from this angle looks a touch awkward, but I think there's much you can do about that. It's just a really hard hole to frame and have the land work from all of those angles that you potentially end up at. Again, I think you will know what I mean with those. Oh, I knew I was going to get slow. But, hang on, really friendly. Again, look at the amount of space that's afforded on this side. Like, it's all really flat to the green. It just runs on naturally. There's a runoff here, but there's none elsewhere. Like, it's just really thinking about being helpful. A friendly course. I think more than any other in this contest, this has got the idea of allowing the player to recover and play running shot. And we finish with a pure aerial shot par 3, which is framing really nicely. It almost feels like this is a 19th hole rather than 18th in that sort of regard. Bunkering around the green's imposing. The green shape is interesting. Yeah, the purist in me wants that line to be mowing line to be a bit straighter, but I get it. Or have a dip or a mound or something. Just can you control a wedge shot? We can see everything that you expect us to see off the tee, framed beautifully again. What a time for the very slow. I bet you've not got many people who've failed, who've missed the ball here. Still, give us one last look at the lake, which is nice. Oh no, let's not make a bogey on the last hole. No, 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 no. Thank goodness. There we go. Okay, so lower fishing lake. It is, I would say, without a doubt, it's a clear top 2 in this contest with those two. And the question is deciding between them, and that does take multiple rounds because you really got to get into the skin of both because they're trying to be slightly different things. What this one is trying to be is utterly forgiving to the weaker player. So I think this would be a really interesting one to go back and play with default clubs. Like, if I'm not playing the 305 driver, how well does it play? And that'll be something I do with separating these two courses. It's not very long. Looking at the distance, 7,000 yards is really forgiving. Granted, it's par 71, so takes it down just a touch. But within that, we had a lot of long holes. Like the third is a long par 3, 10 is a long par 4, 10's a long par 4, two 200 plus yard par 3s. But they're done so sensitively with landing the ball short and kind of working it on. Now, where do I think this might or could potentially be improved? I think this is one where it comes down to vision. Flat and wide is really tricky to pull off, and for the most part, you've absolutely managed it. But what it does take away is like, do I have to hit that shot? Therefore, do I remember that shot? And I think you can really successfully like the biggest strength of this course and its forgiveness is also kind of the one that does it really force you to hit that many memorable shots. There's a lot I enjoyed hitting. I thought the par threes were excellent. They're probably the best shots on the course, I would say. And the second shot into the par 5 14th was really good. The par fours, I think, are the ones where maybe Otago's got a bit more variety with those. Now, I'd love to have seen you do maybe a bit more quirky on certain hole designs, which is something that you've done really well in the past, or maybe varying the bunker scheme. I definitely remember 13, that short par four. Like that one forced me to do something a little bit different with the funky green shape. And certainly the holes near the lake were the most memorable. I think you nailed the big feature that you've got. So I definitely remember playing out to it on 5. I remember the first par 3 overlooking it. I remember playing over it on 1. I played with the outside the dogleg on 6, and then caping around the dogleg on 7, even if I'd have lost the tee. Like the water's still on the right, but it comes back in on the left on the back 9 is thoughtfully done. On 6, you're playing to the outside of the dogleg. On 7, you're playing to the inside of the dogleg. There's so much you're doing that is really thoughtful. And then when we come back on it on the stretch on the back 9, well, 14 we're playing out to it, so that running approach. 15 we play over. 16 it's kind of hug the left-ish off the tee. Maybe would have liked to have seen it come in more on 16 tee shot, because that felt like you could just bash it to the far right of the fairway as much as you wanted. Might need to revisit that one. 17's behind, 18's behind and framing. Like, what you haven't done is tried to trick it up at all, and what other designers might have done would have been to have, oh, you're crossing it, or the creek that we cross on 14 tee shot. Oh, let's put that in, bang in the line of play. You didn't need it. So that works really well. Environment is stellar. I think I probably have that environment slightly ahead of Otago. So they're both really, really good. I think this one just has that, I don't know, the sense of place maybe a bit more for me. But again, 1A and 1B. So that's really where I'm at. And hopefully I've tried to critique as much as I possibly can do. I think greens, maybe we could have gone a bit more spicy occasionally, but again, that's kind of part of what makes it really, really good. And it's just finding that balance. And I think it's possibly on the slightly easier side of where I'd like to see CC. But I think you knew that when you're building it, and it's kind of a vision thing. So what I am going to do is go back and play it with kind of the simpler, shorter clubs and see how it plays from there. Because I reckon it's an absolute blast if you only played with 3 wood off the tee, for example. And that will lend it a huge amount of variety. And then it comes down to the nitty gritty of picking between those two for me. But yeah, awesome course, loads of fun. Hopefully, I've given you a few things you can take away from. And to anyone who's watching this who isn't Matty, hopefully, I've pointed out and explained a lot of the things that it does so well that you can take and use in your own designs, because there's so much really carefully considered stuff that might otherwise go missed. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon. Best of luck in the contest.